Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase pricing and availability questions concerning this watch. Today, a rare opportunity, a chance to buy what is essentially a brand new condition, new old stock, early 1970s Breitling chronograph. Yes, this is Breitling family era ownership. It's not a re-edition, it's not a tribute watch, it's the real deal. So the watch you're looking at right here is the long-playing reference 7104.3. So 7104.3, this watch is a 1970s watch in every sense with a tonneau-like case, although it's fascinating to see how it comes apart as the entire canister, including the crystal, the dial, and the movement, literally pops out and drops out of this outer frame. So it becomes two pieces, and the movement and everything attached to the movement literally drop out like a pocket watch, leaving the bezel and the case separate. In terms of size, it would have been huge for its time. So 40 millimeters in diameter, it's 47.8 from lug tip to lug tip. It's 14 millimeters thick, and then it's got a 20 millimeter spacing in between the lugs. The watch wears nicely on my wrist. You can see it has that tonneau form that is so characteristic of its period, but also the finish. We'll get into that in a moment. Look at it on the wrist. Now, it is on a modern Breitling strap and pin buckle, so if this looks a little bit beefier than what you would have seen in the 70s, that's because we've put it on current spec. But on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters circumference, you can actually see the lugs are far inboard of my wrist on either side, so quite comfortable. It is a fairly flat watch. It's not thin, it's not thick, it's sort of in between. It'll clear a jacket cuff and some shirt sleeves, but yes, all jacket cuffs. I could recommend this watch based on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist for a wrist as small as 14 centimeters circumference, and the down the barrel angle really is the definitive one there. Okay, the strap is familiar, modern Breitling, remarkably thick. They never short you the leather. It's a calfskin style, so we have calfskin with a contrasting stitch, a little bit like an aviator strap. The side is sheer cut and then lacquered for refinement. There is some bolstering or stuffing to give it volume on the bottom. A very supple, fresh calfskin. You can see it's a brand new Breitling factory strap, accompanying a modern-day Breitling pin buckle. One element I always like with these is that Breitling has an elevated bridge. So you see how we have the prongs on each side, but then the strap sits inside and it's flush with the buckle, so it doesn't stack up on your wrist. It has an elevated bridge, a nice feature from a fit standpoint. Taking a look at the case, you can see externally, it's almost like a monoblock in that the case and the bezel are sort of all one piece. Now we've got a rotating bezel that sits on top, but this is one big piece, and you can see it's got that lapping machine radial grain that is so characteristically 1970s. Combine it with the tonneau shape, and this is a watch that's redolent of its era. We've got a bezel that is very period, and you can see it's double calibrated. It has both hours and minutes, so you can decide how you want to set this. You can set it against the hour hand and time 12 hours, or you can set it against the minute hand and time up to 60 minutes, and it's a count up style timing bezel. Bidirectional rotating, so it's not a dive bezel, but it's a useful timer that you can use concurrently with the chronograph. Long playing in the Breitling parlance. This is sometimes known as a long playing. You'll see that applied to the 7104s, to the top times. It means that you've got two chronograph registers, so not just minutes, but also hours, for example. Having the seconds, the minutes, and hours, you have all of the registers, so it is long playing. That's real tritium, and that's real tritium patina. No photina here. Now, it will glow for a few moments, about 30 seconds after you turn out the light, but it will fade very, very, very quickly because there is no activator left. The material, the tritium, has a short half-life, just over 12 years, and that is not superluminova. The dial is antiseptically clean, and you can see it sits underneath a lovely cambered period plexiglass. We'll take a little tour of the case so you can see a few little imperfections in the edge of the bezel, but note the total absence of any refinishing ever. You could sort of see from the shrouds of the chronograph pushers and the crown how all of this just drops out the bottom, leaving the straps, the case, and the bezel together as the movement, the dial, and the crystal actually pop out the bottom. On the back, it probably writes checks that its vintage body can't cash in the sense that it mentions it's anti-magnetic, shock resistant, and water resistant. I recommend you treat it gingerly. It is a vintage watch, though you can see that these all being very shallow engravings and all super crisp. This watch has never seen a refinisher's wheel, right down to the serial number. Consider it to have no water resistance, being that it is a vintage watch. Taking a look at the underside of the lugs, you can see how super sharp this case is. Going back to the dial, a little bit offbeat. We have these sort of side-to-side elongated oval registers, and you can see we've got a combination of chronograph minutes, seconds, hours, and then a red on white date disc. The way this date sets is you turn through the midnight date change, then you back it up to 10 p.m., then you back it through midnight, then you back it up to 10 p.m., then you back it through midnight, and it ratchets the date forward in steps. It does not have hacking. The movement is an unusual caliber known as the Valjoux 7740, and while it might be tempting to associate it with the subsequent 7750, they're very different movements. Although they both have Venus 188 origins, this watch is considered to have a modular chronograph movement, with the chronograph parts actually being designed by Dubois de Praz, but fabricated by Valjoux for this application. So Valjoux survives in the form of ETA today, but back during this period, this was still considered to be a Valjoux project. It used the pieces from the Dubois de Praz module originally developed for the Chronomatic. So you have a DD8510 module that oddly sits on the back of the movement. A lot of times when you think of a modular chronograph, you imagine something sitting on the dial side, but the dial side is just the calendar mechanism. Then you have the core of the movement, which is the manual wind Valjoux, which has about a 42-hour power reserve, a 4 hertz beat rate, and the whole thing with a 17-joule architecture. Then you've got a Dubois de Praz oscillating pinion clutch with a cam-based function selector. And it's actually a very good cam in terms of how it feels, super crisp. And being an oscillating pinion rather than a conventional lateral clutch, you could see how as I engage the chronograph, there's almost no jump or stagger because an oscillating pinion has very little inherent play in it, so it's super smooth, which is one of the reasons this style of chronograph is coming back. De la Soute Originale, F. Pigeon, Richard Mille, de Bethune, they're all using new designed oscillating pinion clutches today, and it's a really nice seamless feature if you don't want your chronograph to always be a second and a half off. And it is a high beat rate, again, 4 hertz, 28,800 vibrations per hour, so it is potentially very, very precise, provided you've got the reflex. As you can see, the dial down at the bottom signed T, and indeed it is. If you want the experience of walking into a Breitling dealer circa about 1973 and buying this watch new, you cannot do much better than the watch in my hand. It even has a movement properly sized for the cases. The 7740 is about 31 plus, so it nicely fills this case. This watch has everything going for it except your wrist. Reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.